I love you. You know? I
Love you, Barry.
I love you, barryz.
Okay.
Love you.
Air kiss.
This is Barney Frank, and I've enjoyed talking with barryz about a range of things, including the documentary about the Clinton impeachment in which I played a role called Let's Get Frank, and I hope everyone will take a look at that. I think it really does have a lot to say about American politics then and now.
Hi, it's barryz from the barryz Show at Langan's Bar, talking to Congressman Barney Frank, who has a great new documentary out called Let's Get Frank. And it's about what?
The Clinton impeachment of 1998.
So you couldn't get any more frank than that?
No.
So buy it everywhere video stores have it, right?
Brilliant deduction.
What a brain.
And he's my buddy.
We'll be right back after these messages and be very frank with Barney.
Yes, Prince Mishkin.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, it's barryz from the barryz Show, live from Times Square, talking to James Hedstrom, has a great celebrity gossip site called TimesSquareGossip.com, right?
Come on, you guys, right after you're done with the Z, TimesSquareGossip.com. Do it now. Do it right after the show.
So come to the TimesSquareGossip.com. Hi, it's barryz from the barryz Show at Langan's Bar on Yom Kippur Eve, talking to the legend, the icon, Congressman Barney Frank. Is it Yom Kippur Eve?
Yeah, but it's not Yom Kippur yet. I don't want to get in trouble. So it's not Yom Kippur yet. It's not sundown. It's pretty gray, but it's not sundown. So
I have a present for you.
Well, thank you.
In honor of Yom Kippur.
Very nice.
That's very nice.
Now, I look at you as a role model, and an icon. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's I'm flattered by it, and I'm conscious of it. I wish it weren't the case. That is, I wish that we lived in a world in which you didn't have the kind of prejudice that made it harder for gay people to do this. But I do recognize that, you'd like to be able to say this doesn't make any difference, but you cannot go from a situation in which there's a lot of prejudice to one in which people are judged solely on their own merits without going through a transition. And part of that transition is to have ways to defy the prejudice. So I am aware that just because of the actually, there was a great quote a few years ago when A. Philip Randolph, the head of the sleeping car porters, a great man, was the only black vice president of the AFL-CIO. And he was arguing with George Meany. This is probably back in the 50s or 60s. And George Meany yelled at him, "Who appointed you the spokesman for all the colored workers in the United States?" And I think it was Murray Kempton who said he should have said process of elimination. And by process of elimination, there aren't that many of us here. So I do understand that, and it's something that I think is my responsibility. I guess the only caveat I have is that I said I'm perfectly willing to be to accept the fact that I'm something of a role model, but I wanted to come with an off-duty sign.
Now you're here talking about your new documentary, and it's called
Let's Get Frank, and it was.
Wait a minute, are you trying to come on to me? You said Let's Get Frank?
In it was just about 8 years ago now. That's how long ago it was. It was in fact, just almost exactly 8 years ago. I was in Manhattan for the summer, for a fundraiser for Democratic colleagues, probably in August of '98. The Republicans were just getting ready to kind of lynch Bill Clinton, drive him out of office, and I ran into a guy who was both interested in politics and in film, and we began to talk about the upcoming impeachment, and out of that came his decision that he'd like to follow me around with the camera and
Even in the bathroom?
in the bathroom. Not in the bathroom, and do a study of impeachment.
What you had here was an effort by the right wing in this country to destroy a man whose political success was making them almost literally crazy. What we had was a fundamental battle for almost the soul of the country. And they, I think, became convinced that the only way to stop America from being torn from its moorings by this wizard, Bill Clinton, was to destroy him. I came to believe they weren't just trying to impeach Bill Clinton, they were trying to drive a stake through his heart.
Is Barney Frank your real name?
Well, actually, no, it is now because I changed it legally. When I was born, my given name was Barnett. That was the name that my parents gave me, named as you are in the Jewish tradition. Tradition! For a deceased relative.
Requiem aeternam Domini, et plus perpetual requiem.
And I was named for my father's father, and the name was Barnett, but although I don't think it was really Barnett over in Russia, but that's what it became here. The problem was my parents always called me Barney, and Barney Frank, I have about a 50-50 chance of people thinking which is first and which is last. With Barnett, it was strangers would automatically assume I had it backwards. It's a little frustrating to be arguing with someone who thinks you don't know your own name and that you got it backwards.
What is your name?
Barney Frank.
Ah!
But when I got to be, I don't know, in my late 20s, I realized I had some legal documents in one version of the name, one in the other, and it was complicated. So I had it legally changed to Barney.
Now we are getting somewhere.
So tell me about this documentary. What is it about? And define the title for me.
Well, it is about essentially the impeachment of Clinton. The president remembers the sex, which he acknowledged as having begun in February of '96, and Ms. Lewinsky said it began in November of '95. What's the exculpatory evidence he's going to bring in? A February calendar saying, oh my God, Monica and I finally did it today. What exculpatory evidence is there to prove that? But with also a focus on what life has been like to some extent for me as an openly gay member of Congress. I was the second member of Congress to acknowledge being gay.
Who was the first?
Gary Studs. He came out in 1983. He was the first to acknowledge it. In 1987, I was the first one voluntarily to come out.
My third question to him was, are you gay? And he immediately answered, yes. Next question.
I was just amazed. I was trying to find him a nice Jewish girl. I mean, what can I say?
We wanted Barney to be happy, and he was clearly unhappy being in the closet.
You find a place where you are comfortable being who you are and start to get to know other people. Get involved with the community. Have people know you as a human being, because what we found is once people know who we really are, that stupid, ignorant prejudice falls away.
Why did you decide to come out of the closet?
Peekaboo.
And be public about your gay lifestyle?
Because I was going crazy, not being public. Because, I'm aware that it had some good political consequences. I think it helped us in our fight against prejudice. But I have to be honest, I got elected to office first in 1972. I was closeted. Then I began this experiment with, I wasn't denying I was gay, but I won't say it publicly. I'll live a gay life privately, but not publicly. It just didn't work. It made
You always know you were gay?
G-A-Y.
Well, I remember when I was 13, I realized I was gay.
Gay?
And
Your bar mitzvah.
right around the same time. And what happened was in 1987, and I just decided I couldn't live the way I'd been living, that, look, there are emotional and physical needs that you cannot deny. And I think I made mistakes trying to live as a closeted man. And
Were you ever married?
Marriage.
No.
No.
I'm exclusively gay.
And a voice like that, you know, straight arrow, nither. I was born with this voice.
And I just decided that I did not want to live in such a cramped way.
Come out, wherever you are.
I thought it might have negative political consequences. It turns out it didn't. And I think that's one of the things I really like to get across to people. Is that most of the people I know who have come out.
I know she's in here. I wonder where she's hiding.
When we discuss our sexuality, it's called coming out.
Who's that down there?
Me, Chris.
Oh, hi, Chris.
Straight people, of course, discuss their sexuality all the time too. But when they do it, it's called talking.
I'm such a you're making me crazy.
But I think when gay and lesbian people have been honest about who we are in our relations with people, it's, in my experience, always had a good ending. But I didn't know that at the time. It has worked out well.
You don't think it was because of that sex scandal you had?
That what was because of the sex scandal?
You coming out of the closet and being public.
No, of course it wasn't. How do you mean? What do you mean I think? What do you mean I think?
Let me out of here. Get me the hell out of here.
Do you think I don't know?
You know, in the documentary, there's some mention of the sex scandal.
But how would I not think? I mean, you're talking about my life. It's not a question of what I think. It's a question of what I know. In fact, I came out publicly in 1987 in July. The sex scandal happened 2.5 years later. It's rare that something that happens 2.5 years later caused something that happened before it.
That goes without saying.
What did happen in 1989 was, yes, a guy whom I'd paid for sex brought this out, and he had actually gotten angry at me, and he tried to blackmail me, and I had already come out. So he couldn't really blackmail me because I had voluntarily come out 2.5 years before this. So he came up with a lot of other accusations which weren't true and we could disprove. But as I said, my coming out was entirely voluntary in October of '87.
To put this issue in perspective, what's going on in America is a cultural war. We have two conflicting philosophies struggling for dominance in our society. The gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Frank, is an example, in my judgment, of these two philosophies in conflict. He admits, Mr. Frank does, that Mr. Goby was in the prostitution business and he assumes was servicing other clients during the time Mr. Frank and Mr. Goby were cohabiting in Mr. Frank's residence. I think he should live with the consequences of his own standard and resign.
I think members here will agree that I've had a reputation for honesty, not always tact or tolerance, but honesty. I made some mistakes. I did in that memorandum misrepresent the facts because in those two instances that was necessary for me to conceal my sexuality.
Doesn't it leave you open to comments like Bonnie Fag from Dick Armey?
Well, it doesn't leave you open to comments. People can say whatever they want. Actually, when Dick Armey said that, it actually damaged him greatly. In fact, his former chief of staff just wrote a book, and there's a whole chapter in that book about how damaging that was to Armey. Now, he says he didn't mean it, that it was a mispronunciation. I'm skeptical of that, but that was a case where it really backfired on him.
By the time Majority Leader Dick Armey began today's session, he had already stepped into a controversy involving Barney Frank, a Democrat. Frank recently criticized Armey's boss, Newt Gingrich, for his book deal.
I like peace and quiet, and I don't need to listen to Barney Frank haranguing in my ear because I made a few bucks off a book I worked on.
It's reflective of the fact that there are people on the right wing of the Republican Party who have said to Dick Armey and others, what are you letting a fag like that give you this grief? There is something about the experience of being discriminated against unfairly. There's something about being denied your rights because of some element of your personality that you can't control, and that even more important, whether you can control it or not, shouldn't be relevant to somebody else. It doesn't hurt anybody else. There's something about being the victim of that kind of discrimination that makes you sympathize with people who are other victims of discrimination.